Let me ask you something simple but powerful. What's the most valuable currency you own? Most people would say money. Some might say time. But if you look deeper, the real answer is energy, because money can be lost and regained. Time passes whether you're present or not. But your energy, that determines how you experience life, moment to moment. It shapes how you show up for your work, your relationships, your health, your purpose. And once it's drained, everything else starts to unravel. Compass, here's the shift I want to invite you into today. Once you realize that your energy is sacred, you stop handing it out carelessly. You stop saying yes to things that leave you empty. You stop people pleasing out of guilt or fear. You stop chasing validation at the cost of your inner peace. Instead, you begin protecting your attention like a gatekeeper. You begin honoring your emotional space. You begin choosing stillness over chaos, clarity over clutter. Scroll the Stoics. Those ancient masters of inner strength understood this better than anyone. To them, strength wasn't about dominance. It wasn't about power over others. It was about power over self. Marcus Aurelius, Emperor of Rome, once said, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this and you will find strength." That's what this episode is about. Not cutting people off in bitterness or building walls around your heart, but about something much wiser. Choosing peace on purpose. Direct hit, think about it this way. Have you ever walked away from a conversation feeling completely drained, even though nothing technically bad happened? Maybe it was someone who constantly complains, or someone who gossips, manipulates, or demands more than they ever give. You smile, you nod, you try to stay polite, but inside, you're shrinking, you're abandoning yourself in the name of being nice. Let me be clear, kindness is not weakness, but self-betrayal in the name of kindness is. And it's often disguised as being a good person. That's why reclaiming your energy isn't selfish. It's self-respect. It's saying, I can still love you, but I no longer choose to exhaust myself trying to fix, convince, or prove. It's saying, I want peace more than I want to be right, admired, or accepted by everyone. It's saying, I choose me, not in ego, but in alignment. Person male, so what does this look like in practice? You pause before responding to a triggering message. You decline a meeting that doesn't serve your focus. You distance yourself, not to punish others, but to preserve your center. You stop chasing people who have shown they don't value your presence. And perhaps most importantly, you let go of the need to explain your peace to anyone who doesn't understand it. Because you're not here to prove your worth. You're here to protect your energy, the very thing that fuels your purpose, your presence, and your peace. Clapperboard, so if you've ever felt like you're tired all the time, not just physically, but emotionally, ask yourself, where am I leaking energy? Is it in conversations that go nowhere? In relationships built on one-sided effort? In overthinking things you can't control? The truth is, you don't need to control everything to find peace. You just need to control what you allow in. And that begins with recognizing your energy is your responsibility. Once you accept that, you stop fighting battles that aren't yours. You stop pouring into cups that don't pour back. You stop trading your inner calm for temporary approval. And in that space, peace finds you, not because life gets easier, but because you've become wise enough to choose what matters most. Let me start with a simple truth. Your peace is sacred, but in a world that never stops shouting, that glorifies urgency, outrage, and noise, silence has become a rare form of strength. We live in a time where being busy is a badge of honor, where setting boundaries is seen as selfish, where keeping your energy centered is misunderstood as being distant. But here's what no one tells you. Protecting your peace is not a luxury. It's survival. It's not weakness, it's wisdom. Person male, think about it. If your mind was a garden, how would you treat it? Would you let anyone trample through it uninvited? Would you allow weeds of resentment, gossip, and drama to grow wild? Or would you cultivate it carefully, pulling out what doesn't serve you, watering the parts that bring you joy, and building a fence to keep out what doesn't belong? Because just like a garden, your peace can't grow in chaos, and it certainly can't thrive when everyone has unlimited access to your inner world. Pushpin, and here's the shift I want you to make today. Not everyone deserves access to your mind, your energy, or your emotional space. That's not cold. That's clarity. We've been conditioned to think that being available to everyone makes us kind. But availability without discernment leads to burnout, bitterness, and broken boundaries. Direct hit, let me ask you something. Have you ever felt emotionally exhausted after a conversation that seemed harmless? Have you ever caught yourself saying yes while everything inside you screamed no? Have you ever stayed in a space, physically or emotionally, where you didn't feel safe, seen, or respected? That's not just discomfort. That's your soul asking you to draw a line. Because every time you ignore those signals, every time you sacrifice your peace to avoid conflict or guilt, you're teaching yourself that your well-being is optional, but it's not. Your peace is your foundation, and once that cracks, everything else starts to shake. Scroll the Stoics had a word for this kind of strength: sovereignty. It's the idea that your inner world, your thoughts, values, and emotions belongs to you alone. You don't owe your energy to anyone who treats it like it's disposable. Marcus Aurelius didn't rule the Roman Empire by pleasing everyone. He ruled by mastering his mind. He said, "You don't have to turn this into something. It doesn't have to upset you." In other words, not everything deserves a reaction. Not everyone deserves access. Not every fire is yours to put out. Fire, so what can you do? Start here. Close your eyes and imagine your inner world like a room or a sanctuary. Who's in there? What kind of energy are they bringing in? Is it supportive, draining, respectful? Now visualize a door. You are the one holding the key. You decide who comes in, how long they stay, and how close they get. And when something doesn't feel right, when you feel consistently tired, resentful, or scattered, don't dismiss those feelings. They're signals. They're boundaries trying to be born. Honor them, because when you honor your peace, you become unshakable. And let me be clear, guarding your peace doesn't mean isolating yourself. It means choosing wisely where your energy flows. It means saying, "I love you, but I need space. I care, but I won't sacrifice myself to keep the peace. I'm here, but not at the cost of my mental and emotional health." Light bulb peace isn't just found in nature retreats and deep breaths. Peace is found in the bold choice to stop explaining yourself to people who misunderstand your quiet. It's found in walking away without guilt, in protecting your mornings, in turning off notifications, in saying no without over-apologizing. Clapper board, so here's your reminder: your peace is not a public park. It's sacred ground. Not everyone gets access. Not everything deserves a response. Not every request needs a yes. Choose peace, not as an escape, but as a form of strength. Because in a world that tries to pull you in every direction, your ability to stay rooted is the greatest power you have. Let me ask you something personal. How many times have you walked away from a conversation exhausted, not because of what was said, but because of what you chose to fight? You see, life constantly throws emotional bait at us. A passive-aggressive comment, a sideways glance, a message designed to provoke, and without even realizing it, we take the bait. We engage, we defend, we argue, but here's the truth. Not every emotional invitation deserves your RSVP. Not every battle needs your attendance. In fact, One of the greatest lessons from Stoic philosophy is this: your mind is complicit in the provocation. Unaffected. Powerful, isn't it? It means no one can truly drag you into drama without your permission. They might push, mock, guilt, or provoke. But the moment you engage, your mind has already agreed to dance with the chaos. Let me be clear, this isn't about being passive. This is about choosing power over ego. This is about emotional judo, the art of letting provocation pass right through you without resistance, without reaction. Think of it like this. Performing arts, someone throws a verbal punch. They want to rise out of you. But instead of flinching or fighting, you step aside. Calm, grounded. Their energy hits nothing but air. Now they're the ones off balance. Now you hold the power, not because you silenced them, but because you didn't lose yourself. That's the power of stillness. See, in a world addicted to reaction, stillness is rebellion. It disarms those who thrive on drama. It protects your peace, and more importantly, it strengthens your character. But let's be honest, this isn't easy. Because when you're being misunderstood, criticized, or tested, your ego screams, say something. Don't let them get away with that. Prove your point. And sometimes, yes, it's important to speak up, but most of the time, it's not about clarity, it's about pride. Here's the critical distinction. Brain wisdom asks, will this add peace to my life? Face with steam from nose ego asks, will this make me feel superior in the moment? If it's ego talking, the win is temporary, but the cost is high. You lose sleep. You replay the argument. You carry their energy with you, all because your pride couldn't sit still. So here's a practice I use, and maybe it'll help you too. Next time you feel triggered, don't respond immediately. Pause, take a deep breath, and ask yourself, is this worth my peace, or just feeding my pride? 9 times out of 10, that question alone is enough to pull you back to center. And if you realize it's not worth it, let it go. Walk away, not with bitterness, but with clarity. Because walking away isn't weakness. It's maturity in motion. It's self-respect over self-justification. You don't owe everyone an explanation. You don't have to prove yourself in every disagreement. And you certainly don't need to fight to feel seen. Sometimes, silence is the highest form of self-mastery. It says, I know who I am, I don't need to prove it here. Let that be your strength. Clapperboard, so the next time someone pushes your buttons, before you raise your voice, before you send that message, before you fall into their emotional trap, pause, breathe, and remember, you are not obligated to attend every argument you're invited to. Protect your energy like your life depends on it, because honestly, the quality of your life does. The world doesn't need more noise. It needs more people who know the power of choosing peace, especially when chaos is knocking. Let me tell you something that might feel uncomfortable at first, but when it clicks, it's life-changing. No is a complete sentence. No long explanation. No apology. No nervous laughter or sugarcoating. Just no. But here's the catch. Most of us were never taught how to say it, especially not without guilt. Why? Because we've been conditioned, especially those of us who grew up trying to keep the peace, avoid conflict, or earn love, to believe that saying no makes us selfish, cold, or difficult. But the truth is far more empowering. Saying no isn't rejection, it's direction. Saying no doesn't make you cruel, it makes you clear. You don't exist to be agreeable at the expense of your peace. You don't have to betray yourself to keep everyone else comfortable. Let's talk about people-pleasing. At its core, people-pleasing isn't kindness. It's fear disguised as helpful. So today, give yourself permission to say no without guilt, to say no without essays, to say no without setting yourself on fire to keep others warm. Because no isn't a wall. It's a door to clarity, peace, purpose, and most importantly, self-respect. Have you ever felt like you were constantly walking on eggshells around someone? Their moods shifted like weather, and you adjusted your entire being just to keep the peace. It's exhausting, and more importantly, it's unsustainable. The truth is, no matter how much you love someone, no matter how deeply you care, you are not responsible for managing their emotional storms. Let that sink in. Stoic wisdom teaches us something powerful. You don't control other people. You only control how you relate to them. But for many of us, especially those who are highly empathetic, this truth is difficult to live out. We feel deeply. We notice shifts in tone, in energy, in silence, and then we go into fix-it mode, trying to soothe, explain, overcompensate, just to bring things back to normal. But here's the harsh reality. If you're always the one regulating other people's emotions, who's regulating yours? It's one thing to be compassionate. It's another to be consumed. That's where boundaries come in. And no, boundaries are not walls to shut people out. They are clarity. They are self-respect. They are the line where your responsibility ends and theirs begins. You can feel compassion without becoming their container. You can love deeply without losing yourself in their emotional roller coaster. Imagine this. Their mood is a storm. It can be thunderous, unpredictable, overwhelming. But that doesn't mean you have to step out into the rain every time. Cyclone, sometimes the most loving thing you can do is step back. Let the storm pass. Be present but not entangled. Supportive but not self-sacrificing. This isn't cold, it's wisdom. Detachment doesn't mean you stop caring, it means you stop controlling. It means you no longer chain your peace to their unpredictable weather. Pushpin, here's a phrase I return to often when I feel pulled into someone else's chaos. This isn't mine to carry. You can offer a listening ear, a kind word, or a grounded presence, but you are not their therapist. You are not their emotional punching bag, and you are not obligated to shrink yourself to match their turbulence. In fact, chasing their moods, fixing their pain, constantly explaining your intentions, all of that slowly chips away at your own emotional clarity. You begin to forget who you are outside of their reactions. So what do you do instead? Brain, you practice emotional detachment, not as a defense, but as a discipline. You stop chasing validation from people who are emotionally unavailable. You stop over-explaining to those who have already made up their minds. You stop fixing what was never yours to fix. And when the energy in the room shifts, instead of absorbing it, you observe it. Like watching clouds drift by in the sky. You acknowledge, but you don't internalize. You breathe, but you don't react. Direct hit. The key shift is this. You learn to hold space without losing space. That is maturity. That is self-mastery. That is freedom. Because the truth is, people will have bad days. They'll shut down. They'll snap. They'll spiral. But you don't have to go down with them. You get to choose your response. You get to choose your peace. You get to choose detachment, not from love, but from chaos. Clapper board, so next time you feel that pressure to walk on eggshells, to fix, explain, or emotionally babysit, pause, step back, and remind yourself, I am not the weather, I am the sky. And I will not be moved by every storm that passes through. You deserve a life that isn't dictated by other people's moods. You deserve peace that isn't borrowed. You deserve relationships built on emotional maturity, not codependent survival. And that all begins with learning to detach without guilt and love without losing yourself. There's a kind of exhaustion that sleep can't fix. You know the one I'm talking about. It's the kind that comes after spending time with someone who, without even meaning to, just drains you. You walk away from the conversation feeling heavier. Your mind keeps replaying their complaints, their jabs, their chaos. And yet you can't quite explain it because they didn't yell, they didn't insult, but still, something inside you feels off. Welcome to the world of energy vampires. And no, I'm not talking about evil people. Most energy drainers aren't cruel. They're just unaware. They offload without asking. They vent endlessly. They manipulate subtly. They expect your emotional labor like it's a given. Maybe it's the coworker who always has a new crisis, or the friend who turns every win of yours into a reason to talk about their struggle, or the family member who always makes you feel guilty for having boundaries. But here's the truth most people don't say out loud. Just because someone isn't toxic on the surface doesn't mean they're good for your nervous system. Stoic philosophy reminds us that peace is our most precious possession, and protecting it is not selfish, it's wise. So how do you recognize an energy vampire? You leave the interaction more anxious than before. You rehearse conversations in your head afterward. You feel responsible for managing their emotions, even when you're depleted. You notice your enthusiasm shrinking around them. You find yourself explaining your silence more than living your truth. These are not minor signs. These are signals from your soul, and when you start to see them, don't wait for some dramatic betrayal to justify walking away. You don't need a huge falling out. You don't need to deliver a long speech. You don't need to burn bridges. You can leave quietly, one less response, a little more space, a silent retreat back into your own peace. Because here's the thing, you don't owe unlimited access to someone who refuses to grow. Just because someone has known you forever doesn't mean they still fit into your future. Just because they were there for you once doesn't mean they get a free pass to drain you forever. Growth is not just about what you chase, it's also about what you release. And sometimes the most powerful act of self-respect is the soft, silent exit. It's not about revenge. It's not about making them feel bad. It's about choosing yourself calmly, intentionally, consistently. Speech balloon, a favorite reminder I live by. Silence is not cruelty, it's protection. You're not cold because you stopped explaining. You're not rude because you stopped overextending. You're not heartless because you chose peace over pleasing. You're healing. You're reclaiming. You're building a life where your energy is honored, not consumed. So the next time you feel that pull, that sense of obligation to stay, explain, or endure, pause. Ask yourself, is this connection watering me or is it draining me? Do I feel safer or smaller? Your answer is your compass. Clapper board, and when you're ready, you don't have to announce your departure. You don't need to defend your decision. You don't have to carry guilt for choosing peace. You simply take your energy back, quietly, gracefully, and never apologize for it. Because a person rooted in peace doesn't chase chaos. They rise above it. We often talk about protecting our peace by setting boundaries with people. But there's something we forget. Something more subtle, yet just as powerful. Your energy isn't only shaped by the people around you. It's also shaped by the content you consume. Let me ask you this. When was the last time you finished scrolling and felt genuinely better about your life? Not just distracted, but clearer, stronger, more grounded. Probably not often. Because while we're careful about toxic people, we're far less careful about toxic inputs. And that's where modern stoicism offers a sharp insight. Your mind is not just a product of your environment, it's a reflection of your attention. Where your attention goes, your energy flows. And in the digital age, your attention is under attack. News cycles, algorithmic outrage, endless reels, everyone selling you a fear, a solution, a crisis. It's a war for your inner world, and most of us are handing it over without even realizing. You might not be able to control the noise out there, but you can control what enters here, brain. What you allow into your ears, your eyes, your thoughts, that's real power, because input becomes identity. What you consume shapes your beliefs. Your beliefs shape your emotions. Your emotions shape your actions, and your actions, they shape your life. Let me give you a real example. I once went through a period where I was constantly anxious, wired, and couldn't focus. At first, I blamed work, stress, people, but when I looked closer, I realized I was starting and ending each day with headlines, hot takes, and highlight reels. I wasn't feeding my mind, I was overstimulating it. And the result wasn't clarity, it was emotional clutter. That's what digital clutter does. It fills your brain with so much noise that you can't hear your own thoughts anymore. So here's the truth most people miss. What you consume is what you become. You don't have to be doom scrolling to feel drained. Even passive content, gossip, constant comparison, meaningless updates slowly chips away at your emotional clarity. So what's the practice? How do we shift from passive consumption to intentional curation? 1. Declutter your digital life. Go through your feed like you would your closet. Unfollow people who trigger comparison or negativity. Unsubscribe from updates that don't uplift, inform, or inspire. Silence the noise, not out of judgment, but out of self-respect. 2. Curate what nourishes you. Fill your inputs with the kind of content that reflects the person you want to become. Podcasts that challenge your thinking, videos that calm your nervous system, words that lift you, not weigh you down. Treat your attention like a garden. Every post you engage with is a seed. What are you growing? 3. Choose peace over passive consumption. Ask yourself, is this making me better or just busy? Is this grounding me or pulling me into someone else's chaos? Because here's what the Stoics would say if they were alive today. Don't just guard your time, guard your attention. Your thoughts are your temple. Don't let everyone walk in with muddy feet. Peace isn't just found in silence. It's found in selection, in being the gatekeeper of what enters your mind. So starting today, audit your inputs like you would audit your finances, because your focus is currency. And every moment you give to mindless consumption is a moment stolen from your growth. Direct hit, choose carefully. Because in a world where everyone wants your attention, your ability to protect it is your superpower. Have you ever left a conversation feeling mentally drained, even though you barely spoke? Or spent hours crafting the perfect response to someone, only to realize they never really listened? You're not alone. In today's world, where everyone has a platform and a microphone, there's a quiet war being fought every day. The war to be understood. The need to convince, to correct, to clarify. It wears us down more than we realize. We're constantly pulled into emotional debates, not because we love conflict, but because we hope. Hope that maybe this time, they'll finally see it our way. But here's the painful truth. Trying to change a closed mind is like pouring water into a sealed jar. It doesn't matter how clear, how pure, or how refreshing your message is, it won't get in. And yet we keep trying. Why? Because in the modern age, opinions have become identities. And identities, they're protected not with logic but with emotion. When someone feels you're challenging their opinion, they don't just feel wrong, they feel threatened. So instead of dialogue, we get defense. Instead of connection, we get chaos. That's where Stoic wisdom offers us a powerful shift. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events." Let that sink in. Not other people's thoughts, not their reactions, just your own. Which means this, you're not obligated to convince anyone. You can share without persuading. You can express without debating. You can walk away without being rude. That's not avoidance. That's clarity. Let's talk about what this looks like in real life. Imagine you're in a conversation and someone says something that feels deeply misinformed, maybe even offensive. Your first instinct might be to correct them, explain your side, or prove your point. And sometimes that's the right thing to do. But ask yourself this first. Am I doing this to create understanding or just to feel right? Will this bring peace or just more noise? Because not every moment is a teaching moment, and not every silence is weakness. Sometimes, silence is the highest form of wisdom. Discernment, the ability to know when to speak and when to stay silent. That's the mark of someone who has mastered their inner world. It's not about shutting down. It's about choosing where your energy goes. You see, constantly trying to make others see your perspective is a fast track to emotional exhaustion. It's like shouting into the wind and wondering why no one hears you. Let me offer you a shift. Instead of asking, "How do I make them see?" try asking, "Is it worth trying?" There's freedom in realizing that your peace is more important than someone else's approval, that not every battle is yours to fight, and that you can love someone deeply without agreeing with everything they believe. Detachment doesn't mean apathy. It means choosing presence over pressure. It means sharing your truth without needing it to be accepted. So what's the practice? 1. Pause before you engage. When you feel that urge to jump in, take a breath. Ask, is this about connection or control? 2. Protect your mental energy. Your energy is finite. Don't waste it on those who have already decided they're not listening. 3. Speak only when it serves peace. If your words can build a bridge, offer them. If they'll only fuel a fire, maybe silence is wiser. You're not here to fix everyone. You're not responsible for someone else's awakening. Direct hit, your only duty is to guard your peace, to live your truth, and to walk away gently, firmly, when a conversation becomes a cage. Because in the end, the most powerful truths don't always need to be shouted. They're lived, quietly, consistently, peacefully. Let me ask you something personal. Have you ever regretted staying silent? Now flip that. How many times have you regretted saying something in the heat of the moment? We live in a world where noise is glorified, where the loudest opinion often drowns out the wisest voice, where people think silence means defeat. But let me tell you, silence isn't weakness. It's not avoidance. It's not a lack of response. It's mastery, it's presence, it's power. You don't need to attend every argument you're invited to. You don't need to respond to every insult, every passive-aggressive jab, or every misunderstanding. Sometimes the most powerful move you can make is to say nothing at all. But don't get me wrong, this isn't about being passive. It's about being intentional. Real silence, the kind that's grounded, aware, and chosen, is an act of strength. It's you drawing a boundary without saying a word. It says, I'm not going to engage, not because I'm afraid to speak, but because I value my peace more than I value proving anything to you. That's emotional maturity. That's self-mastery. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, if you are distressed by anything external, the pain is not due to the thing itself, but to your estimate of it. And when you stay silent, you reclaim that power. You take back control over your estimate. You see, every time you resist the urge to react, you win a quiet battle inside yourself. You reinforce that your emotions don't own you, that your triggers are not the driver of your decisions. And in that space, between stimulus and response, lies true freedom. Silence isn't just absence of sound. It's presence of awareness. You don't need to defend your worth to someone committed to misunderstanding you. You don't need to explain yourself to every critic, because not every opinion is a mirror, and not every voice deserves your energy. Sometimes, silence is the answer that echoes the loudest. It says, you can project what you want, but I'm not available for that drama. It says, you don't get to pull me into a storm I didn't start. And it says, I choose peace over performance. Now, this doesn't mean bottling things up. It means choosing when expression serves you and when silence protects you. Let me offer you a few simple practices. Compass 1. Pause before you react. Before responding to provocation, ask, will this serve peace or just feed chaos? Thought balloon 2. Let silence hold the room. In conversations, especially tense ones, try holding space with your presence instead of rushing to fill the air. Let others sit with their own discomfort. Let the truth float unforced. Person in lotus position 3. Use silence as a reset. When overwhelmed, step away. Walk, breathe. Let silence be your mental reset button, not your surrender. Remember this, your energy is currency. Every response is an investment, and not every situation is worth the withdrawal. You don't need to prove your right to be at peace. You don't need to convince to feel whole. You don't need to win a moment to win your soul, because the real win is walking away with your integrity intact, your mind clear, and your heart unburdened, so the next time someone throws shade or challenges you in a way that tempts your ego, pause and ask, does my peace really need this fight? If the answer is no, let silence be your shield. Let wisdom speak through your stillness, because sometimes the loudest declaration of strength is your decision not to engage. Let's be honest. How often do you find yourself walking into a room, feeling totally fine, and then suddenly your mood shifts? Maybe someone's tense. Maybe they're angry, anxious, or just radiating stress. And before you know it, you've adopted that energy as your own. You didn't choose it, but you're now carrying it. That's emotional contagion. It's real, it's powerful, and if you're not careful, it will run your life. But here's the truth. Just because someone else is having a storm doesn't mean you need to stand in the rain. One of the core lessons of Stoic philosophy is this: do not let the outer weather dictate your inner climate. You get to set your emotional thermostat. You decide your temperature. You control how you respond. That doesn't mean you don't care. It doesn't mean you ignore others or become emotionally numb. It means you stop mirroring chaos and start anchoring calm. Let me share a quote I've come to live by. This is their storm, not mine. It's a simple sentence, but it's a boundary. It reminds you, you can be present for someone without drowning in their pain. You can feel with someone without becoming them. Because here's what happens when you forget that. You lose your emotional center. You become reactive. You spiral. You take things personally. And worst of all, you give away your power. But there is another way. You can learn to notice when you're being pulled into someone else's emotional gravity. You can catch the moment when your body tightens, when your voice shifts, when your energy dips. That's the invitation to pause. That's the moment to ask yourself, is this my emotion or is this theirs? Just that question can give you the space to reset. Balance, do I need to match this frequency or can I offer a different one? Because the world doesn't need more echo chambers of stress. It needs more anchors, more calm, more self-mastery. Let's be real, this takes practice. It takes awareness. But once you learn how to hold your own emotional temperature, you become unshakable. People will still get upset. Drama will still show up. Stress will still swirl around you. But you'll stay steady. Because your thermostat isn't controlled by the room. It's internal. It's grounded. It's yours. And you'll notice something strange happens when you live this way. Instead of being pulled into other people's chaos, you start pulling them into your peace. It's like emotional alchemy. Your presence becomes medicine. Your calm becomes contagious. And suddenly, you're not just protecting your peace. You're spreading it. So the next time you feel that emotional pressure, when someone walks in with a storm cloud over their head, and you feel that tug to match their tone, their fear, their frustration, pause, breathe, and remind yourself, this is their storm, not mine. I do not have to absorb what I can observe. My emotional thermostat belongs to me. Because that, my friend, is the real power, not controlling other people, but mastering your own internal climate. So no matter the outer weather, you remain the calm in the center of it all. Let me ask you something simple, but powerful. Do you have a space in your life that pours back into you, the way you pour into everyone else? In a world where we're constantly giving attention, time, care, it's easy to forget that even the strongest among us run dry. We build walls to protect our peace. We set boundaries. We say no. But protection without restoration is just another path to burnout. And here's a truth most people overlook. Peace is not something you find once and keep forever. It's something you practice daily. The ancient Stoics knew this. Marcus Aurelius wrote in his journal before sunrise, not for the world, but for himself. Seneca emphasized solitude as a form of sharpening the mind. Epictetus believed discipline started internally, with attention and intention. They didn't wait for peace to arrive. They cultivated it like a daily ritual. So let me offer you this. What if your routine wasn't just a habit, but a sacred act? Not sacred in the religious sense, sacred in the way that it reminds you, this moment is mine. This energy is mine. This space is where I refill. That could be 10 minutes in the morning. In complete silence, no phone, no agenda. A walk, just you and the air, feeling your feet on the ground. A warm cup of coffee with your journal open, writing not to impress but to reflect. Listening to your breath or to the birds or to the stillness. And no, this isn't self-care fluff. It's maintenance. Just like a car needs oil or a phone needs charging, your spirit needs anchoring. But here's where it gets deep. The more chaotic your life is, the more sacred your routines must become. Because without that intentional pause, you'll start responding from depletion, not clarity. You'll give out of guilt, not generosity. You'll protect yourself from the world but forget to return to yourself. A sacred routine doesn't need to be long. It just needs to be yours. It's not about the length of time, but the quality of presence. Because when you build a daily ritual to refill your soul, you become harder to shake. You react less. You reflect more. You hold space for your peace to return over and over again. And maybe, just maybe, you'll realize that discipline isn't about doing more. It's about coming back to what matters. So, I'll leave you with this. What's one small, sacred ritual you can start tomorrow morning, just for you? No one has to see it. No one needs to approve. But your energy will feel the difference. Because peace isn't something you stumble into. It's something you build, one sacred habit at a time. There comes a moment, quiet but powerful, when you realize something. No matter how kind you are, how patient you've been, how many boundaries you've tried to set, peace is just not possible. And that moment, it's not a failure, it's clarity. See, we're taught to persevere, to try harder, to keep fixing what's broken. But here's the question that no one asks. At what cost? The Stoic philosopher Seneca once wrote, "A wise man is content with himself, but not willing to live among the wicked." That's not about arrogance. It's about discernment. It's the courage to say, I've done my part, I've shown up, and now I choose myself. Yet walking away often feels harder than staying. Why? Because of the traps we fall into. Guilt. You wonder if you're being selfish or disloyal. Time invested, but I've put years into this. Fear. The unknown, the starting over, the silence after goodbye. But here's the truth. You're not disloyal for leaving what drains you. You're not weak for choosing your peace. You're not cold for walking away from chaos. Sometimes the greatest act of love is walking away, not from the person, but from the version of yourself who kept tolerating pain. You don't have to burn bridges. You don't need final speeches or dramatic exits. You simply stop shrinking to fit where you no longer belong. You stop hoping that peace will bloom in soil that's been salted too many times. And most importantly, you walk not just away from them, but toward yourself, toward the version of you that's whole. That's not surviving, but living. That doesn't define love by struggle or worth by endurance. That knows peace isn't something you have to earn through suffering. There are places where peace can grow. People who won't make you beg for basic kindness. Spaces where your energy is protected, not picked apart. So if you find yourself in a place where peace is impossible, where every effort feels like a battle, let this be your permission. You can leave, quietly, clearly, not because you gave up, but because you finally woke up. Let me ask you a question that might change the way you look at life. What if peace isn't something you find, but something you build? We often think of peace as this faraway destination, a finish line, a reward for surviving enough storms. But in truth, peace doesn't come after the chaos settles. Peace is what you choose in the middle of the storm. Every single day, life gives you 100 chances to lose your center. That email that pokes at your pride. That person who never respects your boundaries. The constant noise telling you you're not enough, not fast enough, not doing enough. And yet every moment you have a choice. Do I react or do I return to myself? Do I chase validation or protect my energy? The Stoics never said life would be calm. They said you could be. Because real strength isn't about what you control. It's about what you don't absorb. The insult you choose not to internalize. The argument you walk away from, even when your ego wants to win. The pressure you say no to because it costs more than it gives. That's strength. That's peace. And it's not built in a single decision, it's shaped in 1,000 quiet ones. Protecting your energy is not selfish. It's sacred. Because when your energy is clean, your mind is